So let's quickly look at functions in Python, and according to me, after this, we should be able to mess around with a few projects. So a function refers to a chunk of reusable code. Okay, so reusable, I want us to think about repetition. When you want to repeat something, ideally you want to use a function. Also, I like to keep in mind that functions are used to perform a specific task. Okay, so whatever I want to reuse, ideally is a specific thing that we want to do. Okay, so let's just look at functions. Now, in order to write functions in Python and even in other languages, we have designated keywords that we use. Okay, and in order to write functions in Python, the keyword we are going to use is called def, or we say we define a function. So let's just start. Let's keep it simple. So you say define, and I want to take us back to our very first lesson. Let's define a function called hello world, and I add a bracket, and then I add my colon. Okay, so typically this is how it's going to go. Now if we analyze this line further, we can see that I have this dash over here. Okay, that's because if I write this, it's not valid, so this is just naming syntax. I believe I've already spoken about this, but let's just keep it at the back of our heads. Okay, we do not type spaces themselves when we are doing this. Okay, now again back to the first couple of lessons, we did speak about indentation. So when we do this to define the function, whatever we write over here, okay, coming down from here like this, belongs to the function, the stuff that the function has to execute. Okay, yeah. What we want this function to do, we want this function to print hello world. Okay, good. So again, I want to show us something, so I'm just going to run this. Okay, now when I go ahead to run this, we are going to see that we don't necessarily have any errors, but nothing happened. We didn't receive any output. Okay, and throughout this course I've been saying that when we get outputs, we do a print. When we write it, we won't get anything, but when we do the print to get the output, we get blah blah. I know that's what I've been saying, but with functions we do something very unique and very different. Okay, and let me just try to show us that. Yeah, so after we define our functions, we need to do something that's a call. Okay, we need to do a function call, and that's simply to tell the function to execute. Okay, so imagine you are someone's boss, and then they have a task to do for you, but they need you to give them the go ahead. They need to confirm. They are not that type level of employee yet to do it without your permission, so you have to call them. So just call it a literal call. So let's call our hello world function to come into action, and the way we do that is we use a parenthesis. Okay, the brackets. Let me not see it. Yeah, so we say hello world, and then we just add the brackets. Okay, you see they even kind of look like telephones left and right. I'm going to run this, and then you can see now we have our output as hello world. So that's how to define the functions and then how to call them. Okay, and let's go ahead to look at some more interesting stuff. So I've gone ahead to comment these out because we want to look at something different. Now this is a very simple function. Let's try to expand. Okay, now functions can also have what we call parameters and then arguments. Okay, good. Now we are going to look at that in a moment. Okay, so say I want a function. Now let's even just use this as an opportunity to understand when we use functions. Okay, so when we want to reuse something, I want to perform a specific task. Okay, so assuming we are actually computers and we want to greet other people, and then we say okay, define greet user or even users of our application like this, and then we add our colon. Okay, good. Now you realize that different users have different usernames and stuff like that. I mean, you could in theory just use multiple print statements, but that's what you are trying to avoid. Okay, it's a reusable thing. So anytime I have to repeat something, you probably think that, oh, I can use a function. Okay, good. Now since all of our users are going to be very different people, we add something we call a parameter, and that parameter is username. But really, just think about it as a variable. Okay, I know that those guys are coming to come after me. Some people just watch these to find errors and stuff like that. But maybe not technically correct, but just think about it as a variable. Okay, and then want to print something, and I want to print. So let's go back to again old lessons, and we use our F string, and we'll see why soon. So we'll say something like maybe welcome to our app. That's long. Let's say welcome back. Okay, and let's say username like this. Okay, good. Username, and that's why I said we should think of it like a variable, because at the end of the day we'll be wanting our actual username. Good. Now when we want to call this function, this is the distinction between the parameter and then the arguments. So you define the function with the parameters, and then again I said this will not do anything. We need to call our function to come into action. So we say greet user, and then we call our function. But we are not done. This function has a parameter, so we need to call the function with an argument. Okay, that satisfies the parameter. Okay, so can again now think of it like we want to fill the variable with input. Let me just say it like that. So let me see which username are we using. Let's see Esther like this, and we want to greet our user Esther. Okay, and you see we have welcome back Esther. So instead of writing multiple print statements, and then imagine we have, instead of writing multiple print statements, imagine we have another user and his name is Kali, another user, her name is, I don't know, Megan, and another user, her name is, any type of users. Let's go for guys, Greg, like whatever we have. Okay, instead of writing multiple print statements, you can just be using these functions and you make all of these calls. So you can see we'll have all of them over here. Kali, Megan, Greg, Esther. It sounds like a stubborn clique of people. So that's our parameters and then our arguments. Let me cap this for one last time. Okay. We define our functions with our parameters, and then we call them with our arguments. So now we've seen the parameters and the arguments. Let's talk about something that's also very important, and that's the return keyword. Okay, so we use this when we don't want the output right away. Okay, I think that's a better wording. So when we don't want the output right away, we use our return. And the way you want to think about this is, okay, it's going to keep this at a particular memory address, and you can just later fetch it when you want. Okay. So far we have been doing functions where we just print, we just bring the output right away. Let's try to do something very different. So again, we want to define the function. We say def, and we say multiply, because we want to do some multiplication. Now we make the brackets and put our column, and we indent. Now we write everything we want. So what we want this particular function to do is to return, again, keyword return. Now before I do this, I need to make the parameters. Okay, so I say A and then B like this, and now we return A times B. Mind you, we didn't print it, we didn't do anything to it. It's just we returned it, we need the value. Okay, good. So once we have this simple function, I'm going to go ahead to call it just to show us what I'm talking about. Okay, multiply, and now we need to satisfy the parameters with arguments. So let me see. Let's use 2 and 3. That should give us 6. Okay, good. And now run. And then you see that we'll go back to having no output, because nowhere in either the function or in the call did we specify that we want output. But make no mistake, the value is still somewhere in memory, and we are going to prove it. Okay, so what I can do is I want to store this in a variable called result. I can just try to print the whole thing, but yeah, so let's just store this. Okay, besides I want to also make the output, I want to make it pretty. So now we print our results like this. Now this alone should work. Okay, but I want to use an F string. I want to add something to the message. It's good practice for us. So we see the results. Let's see products. Okay, products is, and now we see results. What is it? Results like this. Okay, good. And now you're going to see that we have output because we have gone ahead to print the product. Okay, so again we use return when we don't want to print the results right away. Good. Now the parameters themselves don't have to be just one parameter. Okay, we can have multiple parameters. Okay, and let's just look at that. So again, we want to define a function. Let's just go def to do def, that's the keyword. Okay, and then let me see, introduce, let's call it introduce. And now which parameters do we need for introduction? Name, age, we can go school, we can go occupation, we can go on and on and on, but let's just keep this simple because we are trying to learn a concept, we need it to stick. Okay, now we want to print, so this time we are not returning, we are going straight for the output. Okay, and I mean that's a pattern. Usually you return when you want to do mathematics, when it's more of numbers. Okay, so name is, or should it be my name? Okay, let's do name as name, and age is age. Good. So you can have multiple parameters, and now let's try to call this function. So we say introduce like this, and we add a bracket, and now we need to satisfy the parameters with our arguments. So for name we put, let's see, Daniel, and then for age, let's say I'm 50. Okay, and now we are going to run this, and then you can see, guys, we did not put this as an F string, so that didn't work. Now let's try again. Okay, good. So name is that. I'm going to leave this. So if it happens to you, it's normal. So name is Daniel and age is 50. Okay, so that's just showing us that you can have multiple parameters. And before we jump into what I want to talk about next, I want to show us something. Okay, so what if I'm a stubborn user and I put 50 here and I put the Daniel rather over here? Okay, and then I run. You can see that it says name is 50 and age is Daniel. Okay, that can happen because when we are doing things like this, it means we need to match the order. The order is very important. Okay, and I think that's part of why the creators of Python decided to call this arguments, because I mean it's arguable whose name is 50, well 50 cents, but you get the idea. Yes. So I'm going to teach us how we combat this. When we don't want this to happen, we use something we call keyword arguments. Okay, keyword arguments. So when we are doing this, I know this is the age, right? I'm going to say age equal to 50, and now I say name equal to Daniel. I'm specifying what I actually want to print out, okay, regardless of how I've placed it. And you can see we now have the correct thing. It says name is Daniel and then age is 50. Okay, good. So when you don't want things like this to happen, I mean, whichever one you want to use is totally fine, depending on your use case, depending on how you feel, depending on, yes, it's fine. But once again, I have to kind of show you that it exists. Okay, so whichever one you want to use is fine. There is no problem, but just be keeping everything in mind that the order matters. And if you don't want problems with order, you can just be using keyword arguments. Okay, good. Now let's look at default parameters. Okay, default parameters. Good. So in light of this is the same problem as this. I mean, not exactly the same, but in the same borders. Okay. Let's say we have a function, and that function is send notification. Okay, good. Now with this function, what we want it to be doing is we want it to send a message to a user. Now once again, the order really matters. I just want to go user message. You can go message user, but yeah. And what I want this to do is to print. Let me use the f string. We don't want to encounter our same errors. And we say user, and then let's add in a colon, and let's say message. I think this should work. Good. Now let's try to call the function. Okay, let's try to call the function, and let's see send notification. Then we add our brackets, and now you can see we have two parameters, so we are expecting two arguments. Good. Now I come here and then I write, let's see, just one argument, Daniel, for the user. Okay, let's look at what's going to happen to us. We get an error. Okay, so it's going to tell you that it's missing one required positional argument. Okay, it's missing one argument. And now what if I'm a user without any messages or any stuff like that? What if our users are not going to be putting in the parameters, or probably we are reading someone's we have made an automation setup or something, we are reading the emails, and what if there are actually no messages, but we still have to do the update? I mean, be creative with the scenarios, but just to understand more. Okay, what we can do is over here we are going to add a default. So just like the keyword arguments, this one's for the parameters. So it's a default param or parameter. Now we are going to say you have a new alert. Okay, good. You have a new alert. So this time when I run this, it's going to tell Daniel that he has a new alert. Okay, good. Or we can also call, let me copy this. We can also call with the extra argument, and everything is going to be fine. So we can add the message ourselves. See, your download is complete. Maybe we have completed some form download. When we run this, you see your download is complete. So this only runs if we add the second argument, and if we don't add it, it's going to fall back to our default argument we added when we defined the functions. Okay, so those are default parameters in Python. Good. So let's look at local versus global variables. Okay, now since the start of this course, I've only spoken about variables in one context. Okay, but we also have other contexts that we have to look at. So we can have variables in a global sense, and since functions have come into the picture, and I've been explaining that when you have a function like this, everything in the indentation belongs to the function. So it's like its own community on its own. Okay, but let me just do some demonstration and we use it to explain it better. That's local versus global variables. Okay, good. So again, we try to define a function with a keyword. I want to say update score. Okay, now inside here we want to say score equal to 50. Okay, mind you, practically the same thing word for word, and you can see that our IDE is even showing us that it's the same thing, but they're in different colors. Okay, so this is going to be the local variable. I want to print score inside function is score, like this. Let's make this an F string. Okay, good. So score inside function is score. So like I was saying, this one is local. Okay, let's imagine this is the bigger country. Okay, so this is the president's score. This score is for the president, and maybe this score is for the senator, it's for the MP, it's for his subordinates, one of the subordinates. Okay, let's just think of it like that. And now if you go ahead to call this update score function, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to give us the score from the subordinates because it's a local variable. The function deals with things in its locality, things within the indentation. So I just want us to see that the score inside function is 50. It looks like I have typos. Function. So you see score inside our function is 50, and that's correct. And now let's just print score. We are going to see the global variable because we are outside of our function. Good. So when we print score, just for printing score sake, is 100. But in context of the function, again, the subordinates, the MP, the senator, and then what he has access to is going to give us 50. Okay. So that's global versus local variables. I mean, there's more to it. We can really go deeper, but I'm going to leave it at this. Okay. Good. So this is the last thing we are going to be doing with respect to functions, and then we are going to go ahead to mess with a lot of projects and basically have fun. But I would like to see this can be a head bender. So calm down. I'm going to try to keep the examples as simple as I can. Okay. So functions, as you see them, can call other functions. Okay. And how is that going to look like? Good. So let's say we work for the IRS. Okay. And then we want to do some taxing. So we have a function. Calculate tax. Okay. Now with this function, what I want you to do is I want to take an amount. Okay. Parameter as amount. I want to return amount times. Let me see tax. Okay, I'm a good guy. Let's just say 10%. Okay. I'm not God, but 10%. So this will be for me, okay, at the IRS. Okay. And let's see the person paying the tax wants to calculate their final price. Okay, let's see what they have to pay. All right, final price like this. That's also going to take in amount. Okay, and then we need our colon. Good. Now let's pay attention over here. Okay. Now, in order for the person to know what money they have left, let's say after paying tax, blah blah blah, they need the amount. Okay, they need the amount. Them paying the tax, they need the amount, and then want to subtract the tax. Okay, so we could have gone ahead to do the computation all in one function, but remember I said functions do very specific things. I mean, they can get specific as this, as having small functions doing small different things. Okay, but we want to take out the tax, which we already have a function that's calculating that. So what you simply can do is you can call the function. So you can say minus calculate. You have to spell calculate tax like this, and then we also say amount. So the moment we do have this, it's going to compute the 10%. Okay, so we have seen that we have called a function, okay, inside of another function, if that makes any sense. And what we should expect is, so this is 10%, right? Let's say our principal amount is 100. That's our final price we'll have after paying tax will be like 90. Okay, so let's see, how do I let's print. Okay, because we definitely need outputs. Now let's just call our final price. Okay, we could have put it in a variable and all that pretty stuff, but let's just call it straight ahead and print the output itself. And let's call it with 100. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and then like I said, you have 90. Okay, so I don't know, you can build this program using it, give it some form of UI or something, and also have a way to be getting user input itself and be calculating your tax and stuff like that. And hopefully to the applications already do this, so there should not really be a problem. Let's see if you end, let me see if you end 1 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, good. So that's our tax application. So this is a very simple demonstration. I mean, it can get really complex, but again, let's keep it simple for understanding. And that will be all for functions in Python.